Today I wanted to chat to you about, you can see I'm in a different location. I've actually I'm doing the Facebook Live today from what I call our winter room. And this is effectively our second living area. As you can see, I've got all my books, my cookbooks and travel books and everything behind me. So this is a contentious room at the moment because my husband is currently working from home and has been for the last 3 months. And he's effectively not going to go back to the office. So now my office has become his office, and he doesn't like that there's too much noise because we're both on the phone and Zoom calls and everything else. So he has decided that he wants to claim this very precious winter room, which I'm not so sure about. We've got beautiful north-facing sun coming in. You can see it there in the background. And I mean, I love being surrounded by books. It's also where his piano is. So I suppose he can have a room with everything in one location, with his piano and his desk and the fire and a sofa and a carpeted room. So this is our, we love coming in here as our winter room because it's carpeted. We've got the fire in here. We get the north-facing sun. The kids and I get on the floor and play board games and so forth. And recently, because we have been in lockdown, it's also been the area where the kids have got onto their Zoom classes and done yoga and jazz classes and things like that. So it's a really used room, but I love calling it the winter room because we gravitate here as a family in winter because it's cozy. We can close the door, we can just have the heater on in this space, and it's just really, really conducive to being cozy and warm rather than being in a big open plan area. So this is actually one of the spaces that I really encourage my clients to have, which is a second living area if they've got the space that is actually carpeted. You can see behind me I've got the heavy drapes. They're double lined, so that they've got a lot of volume with them, and they're also they've got a lot of insulation properties as well. So it just completely changes the feel in this room. Now, that is not what I was going to talk about today, but I've just got sidetracked a little bit because I am in my different location because I got kicked out of my own office. And hi, all these people for calling, for joining the call today. And as normal, I've got it on Facebook and I've also got it on Instagram. So hence why I've got my eyes going up, down, up, down. All right, so today, sinks in island benches. This is something that we get asked a lot about with clients, and I've seen it pop up on a lot of Facebook forums over the last couple of weeks. So it is a big question when perhaps the design of the kitchen is not quite working for you. You might be constrained by space. And also sometimes the feedback with friends, which my thoughts are about always thinking about what your friends think is a great idea. Unless they've lived with that, it's probably best to speak to someone that has really good knowledge about different elements from an interior design and functionality perspective. So with regards to sink to island benches, I am not a fan. I think that if it can be avoided, it is a much better position and a much better situation if you can avoid having the sink in the main island bench of the kitchen. Now, sometimes when you've got a much smaller footprint in your kitchen, it's not avoidable. And in those situations, you've just got to make it work. But if you've got a choice and you can actually get the sink out of the island bench, which is always my goal with any kitchen design we're doing, then I would definitely opt for that. Now, what are the reasons for this? The first one is when you've got your sink in the island bench. Oh, thank you, JL Interiors. You couldn't agree more yet. So she said she already hates the sink in her island bench. So these are the reasons I don't like it. One is, when you've got people over, or even when you're preparing anything, it means that your main prep area, and I always think that your island bench is the main prep area. It's a really good lineal space. You're not restricted by other things unless you've got the sink in the island bench. But it means that when you're preparing and you're washing your vegetables or you're washing up a few things to get ready, you've got water splashing everywhere. It's inevitable that when you are using a sink, there is going to be splashing. So I don't like that. I don't want to think that this area that I'm trying to prepare, you might be making pastry or whatever it is, that you are then having splash. The kids come in and they want to rinse something. It's just a disaster in my view. So Water splashing everywhere, I just don't think is great on your main prep area. That's one. Two, you've got people coming over and you've got all these dishes in the sink. That would not be, for me, my ideal scenario. I don't really mind when my sink is at the side. I've got a few dishes in there or whatever, because it's not in the main area where you're going to be liaising and talking, and people are going to be leaning on your bench. And not only are they maybe in a position where they're going to be splashed because you're pouring them a glass of water, or that you've got all your dirty dishes in there. Plus, when you're prepping and you're putting things in the sink and you're rinsing your pasta or whatever it is, that means all of that is going on while you've got your friends over there. So that's the second reason. All these dishes, you don't really need, as they say, you don't really need to see all of your friends, your dirty laundry. So I would want to keep my dishes and all of that to the side, really as much out of sight as possible. So that's another reason I don't like the sink in the island bench. The other reason, the third big reason, is socially, you've got this, sorry, not socially, but you've got this lineal space. So for me, as I was saying before, oh, hi, Edwina. How lovely it is to have you on here. Edwina is actually coming in from the UK, and I did millinery classes with her. She's the most incredible milliner, and it's so awesome to see what you're doing, Edwina. So thanks so much for joining. So I learned all my millinery skills in London with Edwina. So when you've got a big island bench, that is a fantastic prep area. It's lineal. It can become a buffet when you've got a lot of people over. You can, set it all up with your crockery and all your prepared meals. And so people can just sort of walk around and serve themselves. So for me, that island bench just serves so many different purposes. It's a breakfast bar. It's a prep area. It's what an amazing area it is to be able to roll out your pastry, knead your bread, and just have a lot of things out when you're preparing a meal. And so if you've got the sink there, it is obstructing that really big lineal space. And so you don't get as much bench space because the sink is there. You also then, if you have got a breakfast bar set up, it's going to inhibit, really having someone to be able to sit where that sink is. So it means you can't sit as many people. When people are, leaning over that, the island bench, when you're having people over for a drink, it acts as a bar. So that's also not a great reason to have the sink there. So these are probably the three key reasons. One, the water splashing. Two, you don't really want to see people to see your dishes, but also it is breaking up that fantastic long prep area that you've got, and inhibits people being able to sit in that particular location of the bench because you got your sink there. So you don't socially want people leaning over your sink either. So they are the main reasons. And as I said before, sometimes not all kitchen designs have the luxury of having enough space that there is another location for the sink to go. But if you've got a choice, and if you've got a really good kitchen designer and there is an option, I would definitely make sure that you get the sink out of the island bench. So are there any other questions that people would like to ask me? I know that this has been quite contentious, and it's great that we've got JL Interiors who's already said she hates her sink in the island. And I do have people say, oh, but it's sort of, when I'm prepping and I've got my water really close by. Yeah, but is it really that much to be able to walk one step to the sink and then have everything to the side? And so I think that that's much nicer. The other argument I get is, oh yeah, but when I'm sort of doing my dishes, I can watch everyone. Well, you're going to be able to watch everyone when you're prepping your meals, and your sink to the side is not really going to stop you being able to watch everyone anyway. You can easily turn around, and when you've got guests over, you're not really going to be washing your dishes. You might be prepping, but you don't ideally want to be washing your dishes when you've got people over anyway. So I hope that is enough argument for you to realise and maybe understand why it's not ideal to have the sink in the island bench. Now, I've got a comment here. I'd like to say that if you do have to have the sink in the island, to have a tap that actually meets the centre of the sink, so it reduces the amount of splashing. Absolutely, completely agree. Sometimes I see them to the side, but completely agree that it will actually reduce the splashing. So when there is no choice, that's what you can do. I suppose the other thing is you could have the sink off the island, and you may have then a cooktop in the island. Similar sorts of things. I mean, if it's induction, it's not really an issue from a hot heat perspective. You can always have a what's the word I'm looking for? A range hood that is actually hidden in the ceiling, or you can have them actually the ones that extract down, like a borer. So that's also an option. And you are more likely to be cooking in front of people rather than washing dishes. So I think that would possibly be a better option if space is an issue, to actually have your cooktop, and it would need to be induction from a heat perspective, in your island bench rather than having the sink. The induction cooktop can also then act as still a prep area. You're losing prep area when you've got a sink there. So I think that's, that would be the lesser of the two evils if you had to have a choice. All right, so if we don't have any other questions about sinks in islands, or any other questions around anything else to do with renovations or new builds this week, because of course, as you know, I'm here every Friday at 10 o'clock. I will wish you a very nice weekend. It's very sunny here in Melbourne, which I'm very happy about, even though it's a little bit chilly. And we are going to be dog training this weekend, so that's very exciting. Edwina, you'd be very happy to know that I've got myself a dog, and he's become my third child. And I'm very, very happy to have a dog. And I spoke about him last week, and yes, he needs to be trained though. He's a bit of a barker. So I'll be down at the beach later on taking my dog for a big run. And we're actually having our first social engagement since lockdown. So friends of ours invited us over for dinner tonight, just the four of us. And they've got 2 children, so that'll be really lovely. And it seems quite bizarre going out and going over to someone's house for dinner. We had my parents here on Wednesday for my daughter's birthday, and we did actually socially isolate them. And so we had them at one end of the table. There was a good 1.5 meters between the seating arrangements, and we had our 4. So my husband and I and the 2 kids were way up the other end of the table, and my parents were sort of up the other end. But it worked quite well because it was a small amount of people, and we could still always, we could still talk and so forth. But it was quite funny that we had them, and it's like, no, you've got to sit there. We still need the social isolation. So I'm sure that will happen tonight as well. But it's been, it's quite bizarre going over to someone's house. It just seems like such a rarity. It's like, I've got to, I've even got my jewellery on, and not just my earrings, and I've got boots on, and it just seems weird. So, yes, I hope that wherever you are in the world, that, maybe you're starting to slowly, we do need to take it really slowly, meet up with people. Edwina, wonderful news. I hope the girls love him. Lucky them. Oh, the dog has just been amazing, Edwina. He's just so much part of our lives, and we just adore him. But he's definitely my third child. So I certainly know how McGinty was for you. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget, next week I'll be on again. I think on the podcast this week I spoke about, which was on Wednesday it got released, which is actually all about toilets. And I know it's not a very sexy topic by any stretch of the imagination, and it's like, interior design, that's the last thing you want to be thinking about. But we get so many questions about what's the difference between all the different types of loos. Do I go rimless? Do I go back to wall? What's a back to wall? So in the podcast episode that was released on Wednesday, I actually talk about the different types of toilets and what you can expect, why they might be more expensive over another. And so hopefully that helps a lot of you. I've already had people got back to me and said, I'll never look at a loo in the same way ever again. So hopefully that can help you work out the type of toilet that's going to be best for you. So grab that. And as I mentioned last week, we are launching a new kitchen season of the podcast. And I will be sending out a feedback and really trying to get some understanding from you in terms of the sorts of topics that you'd like us to talk about, either in the kitchen season or even outside of that. What are the other things you'd like us to talk about? The laundry episode of the podcast has been really popular, and that's where I talk about all things laundries and the types of things to consider and what we're always looking for when we are reviewing laundry designs from other people or we are creating laundry design. There are big tick list for us in terms of what every laundry needs to have to make it work super hard for you. All right, everyone, have a fabulous weekend, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye for now. So I don't know what happened. Yes.